When it comes to wastewater, most of us are grateful to just flush the toilet and forget about it. But thanks to HRSD, there's actually a lot of very valuable testing going on the other end. And little did they know just how valuable that testing would be over the past year. I recently got to speak with Kyle Curtis, an HRSD Environmental Scientist, who helped to educate me on all of the testing they do, because believe it or not, this respiratory virus is showing up in our wastewater. Take a look.
Yeah, so it seems kind of counterintuitive to think of a virus that we've heard basically you can't avoid hearing about for the last year, which is a respiratory virus, and the fact that we can track it in wastewater. But actually, it's kind of a simple thing. So people who get infected with SARS-CoV-2 will shed the virus in their stool. So basically in what travels to the wastewater treatment facility. And based on some, sort of like molecular technology that we've already had in place and we make use of to quantify other viruses in wastewater, we can quantify the virus at all of the facilities that HRSD operates. So very simply, any organization, whether it be a utility or an academic research group, can get a sample of wastewater. And if I don't want to say anybody, but it's a pretty low number of people in that facility's catchment. So basically the facility, the spatial area that the facility services, if there are infected people, they will be shedding it. And so it will make its way to the facility. And if you can run these tests, you can detect it and quantify it.
So, this is kind of mind blowing for people who really all we do is flush the toilet and forget about it. But apparently, so you guys are all the time testing what comes out on the other end?
Yeah, there's surprisingly a lot of good reasons to want to do more than, just make sure the facility is operating correctly. Obviously that's the priority. But then there's a lot of research that you can do that can go in all different directions, some of which are for optimizing plant process, and then some of which are kind of facing back towards the community, because the more that we're able to kind of glean from the wastewater signal, the more we know about the community. So the reason I say that is kind of a summary of what a lot of sort of epidemiologists have said, which is that if you can get the wastewater signature of the community, you can kind of get that disease's signature in the community. So it's almost like an aggregate of what's going on in the community. With this work, we were in, HRSD specifically was poised to really jump into this work because we have a molecular lab here and some molecular biologists that are really good at this, and we were already doing it with other viruses. And so with the coronavirus pandemic coming out, there were a lot of other researchers who already knew about this field, and the field is called wastewater-based epidemiology. And so that's the broad idea of just using wastewater to characterize what's going on in the community. So there's famous examples of this being used with really high efficacy for things like polio, right? So you go to eradicate something like polio, and then rather than go along and test everybody in the community, you can test the wastewater, right? Because it's another one of those things where you'll shed it there. And at this point, when it's almost eradicated, you just want to know, is it anywhere? And there's other really good examples of this. But anyway, the folks that knew about wastewater epidemiology already said, okay, the virus is coming along. We're learning more about it, really early days. Does it infect any portion of the gut that would, result in you shedding it in stool? And once that was confirmed, which is, pretty early on also from clinical data, then we all kind of just jumped right on it. And to get back to your original question, yes, we compiled it. Once we felt confident in the tests, we compiled the data and we routinely send it to our health department.
Now, Kyle also made the point to explain that the surveillance program detects viral RNA. So they're not detecting the actual live virus, and therefore they're not putting their wastewater surveillance workers at any additional threat to COVID-19. So that's definitely a good thing so that they can stay safe while still testing. Now, he says moving forward, they're really looking forward to seeing that downward trend in the viral RNA load in wastewater, because that could point to when our community will reach herd immunity, which everyone is excited to see. So you can learn more about everything that HRSD does for our community at hrsd.com.